Good morning. It is my honor to still be the 45th governor of the great state of Wisconsin. And it's my honor to be on the stage with the man I hope is the 45th president of these United States. Boy, I saw that blanket, Dan. That's pretty exciting. Although I don't think Governor Romney's going to wrap himself in that today, right? It's great to be back in Monterey. It's great to be back in Janesville. As Paul Ryan knows, for me, this was always a big city. I grew up in the small town of Delavan, so we used to come over here. Our big nights on Friday nights were coming over to Shakey's and to the Janesville Mall. That's right. You had a little bit of pizza, so it's always good to be back in Janesville. But I'm really honored to be here today with, as I said, the man I hope is the next president, the 45th president of these United States. When I grew up in Delavan, we were proud of our leaders, particularly those who had the experience to lead. And when you think about Governor Romney, he's had the experience at so many levels. He's got the experience as a businessman who really helped start out and reform so many companies, many of which are household names. He then went on a decade ago as an executive to take an Olympics that literally was on the verge of an absolute disaster, not only for the Olympics, but for our country. Would have been a national and global disaster. He turned it around and made it a source of tremendous pride. And as a governor, something I'm affectionate for, because I know governors, the buck stops with you. And in his case, as governor, he took a state where he inherited a whole lot of debt, turned it around, and still found a way to cut taxes time and time again to get his economy going in his state. Wouldn't that be nice to have a president who thought like that? But most importantly, on the day after yesterday, he's a father. He and Ann have 5 grown sons, and he dotes after 18 grandchildren, which I think is one of the most important jobs out there. I like it. I like it. And we know how important it is. So he's got the experience to lead, and that's important because now more than ever, for those grandkids and our kids and grandkids here in the state and across this country, we need someone to stand up and lead. We need someone to stand up and lead and turn this country around. We know how important it is when you can make a change when it comes to leadership. I mean, think about it. Just less than 2 years ago, the 44th governor of Wisconsin was still in office. And at that time, our state, over the 3 years prior to that, had lost more than 100,000 jobs. Unemployment rate at the peak was over 9%. Our state had a budget deficit of $3.6 billion, one of the biggest ever, and we were in real trouble. We made a change in the state, elected a new governor, and because of those changes, because of a Republican governor and Republican legislature, we were able to transform things so much so that we now have a budget surplus. We've set money We've got a budget surplus for the first time ever. We've set money aside in 2 consecutive years for the rainy day fund. And most importantly, there's been more than 41,000 new jobs created in the private sector, and the unemployment rate, it's the lowest it's been since 2008. Leadership matters. We were able to show here in Wisconsin that you can turn things around. We've turned things around in Wisconsin. It's time to elect a leader who can turn things around for America. We need a leader who's going to put jobs first, who believes in America. Most importantly, we need a leader who, unlike the president, understands that success in government is not measured by how many people are dependent on the government. No, we need a leader who understands that just the opposite is true. Success in government is how many fewer people are dependent on government, not because we push them off, but because ultimately there are more jobs in the private sector that put those people back to work. We need a leader who believes in more freedom and more prosperity, a leader who believes in America and believes that our best days are yet to come. We need a leader, and that leader is Governor Mitt Romney. Let's give him a warm Wisconsin welcome.
Thank you. What a welcome. I'd ask you to sit down, but there aren't any chairs, are there? Oh, there are? Oh, sit down then. Come on, guys. Wow. Should we turn on the air conditioning too, do you think? You know, there's a group outside that's even larger than the group in here, believe it or not. And so let's ask them, can we hear you outside? Hey, we hear you. All right. Those guys are great. What a kickoff here in Janesville. What an honor it is to be here. Thank you so much, Dan, for the blanket, just what we needed this morning. And thank you for bringing so many friends. I'll tell you, I think President Obama had just put this in his column. He just assumed from the very beginning Wisconsin was going to be his. But you know what? We're going to win Wisconsin. We're going to get the White House. And it has a lot to do with his record. It has a lot to do with what's happened over the last 3.5 years. People in this country are having a hard time. These are challenging times in America. And because of his failed record, his campaign's having a hard time deciding what to talk about. Because they'd like to talk about the economy and they'd like to talk about his record, but you know, they know that last time his campaign slogan was hope and change. This time they're going with, we hope to change the subject. But we're not going to let them do that. We're going to talk about the economy and jobs and getting Americans back to work. You know, after he was elected, and with all the promises he made, he went on the Today Show, and he said, look, if I can't turn the economy around in 3 years, I'll be looking at a one-term proposition, and we're here to collect. And so for the last several months, he's been trotting out this idea that everything's going just fine. That remember, he said that the private sector is doing fine. And then 23 million Americans that are out of work or stopped looking for work or seriously underemployed, they began to speak up. And people who've lost their homes began to shout out. And people who'd seen the incomes in America go down. Do you know the median income in America has dropped by 10% in the last 4 years? Even as gasoline prices have doubled and the prices on many of the things we buy have gone up and up and up. And so with those tough times, people began to shout out, and he recognized he couldn't go with that line anymore because there's no way we're going to let him turn a one-term proposition into an 8-year proposition. It's time to replace Barack Obama. Now he tries to tell people that his policies are actually working. That it's taking longer than we all had been told and promised. And I can tell you that I know he's a very eloquent person and is able to describe these policies in great detail and in some respects tell you that night is day and day is night, but people know better. And by the way, if you got a question about that, if you wonder whether Obamacare and Dodd-Frank and massive budget deficits and his energy policies, if you think those things might make things better, why just go talk to a business person? Talk to Dan here, or talk to business people in your community. Whether they make things or sell things or distribute things, ask them, have the president's policies made it easier for you to hire people and to grow? And I know what they're going to say, because I saw a survey the other day that was done by the Chamber of Commerce about a year ago. They asked 1,500 small businesses, what has Obamacare done? 3/4 of them said it made it less likely for them to hire people. If your priority is jobs, you got to get rid of Obamacare, and I will. Obamacare hasn't helped create jobs. How about Dodd-Frank? I met with some small business folks this morning, talking to them about their business. One of them talked about the fact that you can't make a business successful by just shrinking your employees year after year after year. And in these tough times, he's had to cut back. But now he's found a way to get some new customers. He wants to grow the business. But you know, when you grow a business, there are two ways to be able to do it, to be able to finance it. You have to be able to have the money to pay the people and to build the facility to grow. So where do you get that money? Either from your profits that you're able to reinvest, or by going to the bank and getting a loan. He goes to the banks, they won't make loans. One of the reasons they're not making loans to small businesses these days is because of Dodd-Frank and the overregulation in Washington. They're making it harder for banks to make loans and to put people back to work. And then you have your other source. If you can't get a loan, of course you can say, well, I'm going to invest the profits we get. But these, yeah, I hear a laugh over here. But these small businesses, the president wants to take more of their profit in taxes. Do you realize most small businesses are taxed not as corporations, but as individuals? They don't pay the corporate tax, they pay the individual tax rate. And he wants to take that rate from 35% to 40%. You think about what that means to an entrepreneur, a person starting a business or trying to expand. They know that if they're lucky enough to make a profit, and it's not easy, you're right. If you're lucky enough to make a profit, then the government wants not just 35%, but 40% of it, making it harder for you to grow. My priority is putting Americans back to work. That's job one. Now, the president gave a big, long speech last week. You may have seen, oh, you didn't see it. Anyone here see the whole thing? No. It's like reading the Affordable Care Act, you know. Not many people have done it. It was 52 or 53 or 54 minutes, something like that, and he laid out his plans, I guess. And one of the things he said I agreed with. He said that everyone in America deserves a fair shot, and I agree. People ought to know that if they're willing to work hard, if they got an education, they have the right kind of values, take personal responsibility, have the blessings of family, that people in this country ought to know that they have a fair shot of being successful in fulfilling their dreams or getting a good job and providing for their family. But let me ask you a couple questions. Do you think that when the president spends trillions of dollars more than we take in and passes those debts on to the next generation, that those kids, those people of the next generation, are they going to get a fair shot? How about when the president takes your tax money and uses it to invest or to guarantee loans for businesses that happen to be owned by his campaign contributors? People like Solyndra and Fisker and Tesla. Do you think that gives you and the other entrepreneurs in America a fair shot? And then how about when the kids in Washington, D.C., who had scholarships to be able to go to the schools of their choice, these inner city schools weren't performing well, so kids standing 4 deep in line going to charter schools, he yanked that away. Did that give those kids a fair shot? I'm convinced that if you look at the American people today, you say, boy, they're having a hard time under this president. They're not getting a fair shot. How about the soldiers that are coming back from conflict, expect to come back here and get a job, instead they're in an unemployment line? Does that give them a fair shot? How about the people all over this country who expected by working hard and over these last years by making tough choices? They're tired of being tired. And yet this president keeps telling them, oh, give me 4 more years. I'll solve this 4 more years. Are they getting a fair shot? Look, if there's ever been a president who's not been able to provide to the American people a fair shot, it's this president, and that's why we're going to replace him with someone who'll go to work to get us working again. Now I'm asked now and then, how are you going to do that? Well, first of all, I'm going to make that my #1 job. I'm going to go into office and not push it aside to the Congress and say to Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid, well, they won't be leaders at that point anyway, but I'm not going to push that over to them and say, you take care of the economy while I get to go do the things I want to do, like Obamacare and Dodd-Frank and cap and trade and card check. What was that? All right, yeah, that's wrong. Okay. What I'm going to do is focus my attention on getting Americans back to work. That's going to be job one. And then, let me tell you how some of the things I'm going to do that. There's a long list of what has to be done to make an economy strong. If there were only one button you had to press to put everyone to work with good jobs and rising incomes, why, anybody would have figured out how to press it. But there are a lot of things you have to do to get the economy strong. Let me tell you three I'd do right away. Number one, I would take advantage of our energy resources, our coal, our gas, our oil. And if I have to build it myself, I'm going to get that pipeline down here from Canada to get oil here. There's been just an extraordinary blessing for this country. The energy resources we have here. We're an energy-rich nation. Someone learned how to do something unusual. We don't just drill into the earth by going vertically and tapping into a pocket of oil or gas today. We go vertically and then horizontally. And we can tap into all sorts of pockets along the way. And then by forcing in liquid, we can force the gas and the oil out. And so we have now 100 years of natural gas supply and low prices. I want to take advantage of that. Why? Because I know if we do take advantage of our energy resources, we're going to have manufacturers like this grow and others come back to America. Because manufacturing uses energy and homes use energy. I saw an article the other day in the Washington Post, and they said that, this is by a guy named David Ignatius, the study they were citing said that America could be the #1 energy producing nation in the world within 10 years. I want that energy here because I want those jobs here. We're going to bring employment back up in America thanks to energy. Now there's something else I'm going to do, and that is I'm going to get rid of this huge overhang. There's this cloud that's hanging over small business today. You go ask a small business person about why they're uncomfortable hiring more people right now. And they'll say, well, they'll talk about one piece of legislation that gives them real heartburn. They just don't know what's coming. Someone said, we won't know what it's going to do until we've actually passed it, all right? Remember that line by Nancy Pelosi? I'm going to do something to give us a big dose of certainty. I will repeal Obamacare. We're going to get that done from the very beginning. And then there's something else. When people think about taking their life savings and investing to start a small business, or perhaps some big foreign corporation wants to build a big factory here, one of the things they think about is whether America's going to hit a grease-like wall down the road. Because the path we're on, spending $1 trillion more every year than we take in, is leading us to Greece. I want to make sure no one ever wonders about that. That they understand the dollar will be worth something down the road and that we will have a strong and stable foundation fiscally. And so to do that, I'm going to finally get America on track to have a balanced budget, just like your governor's done here. Look, this counts. This makes a difference. This makes a difference in the lives of our citizens that are without work or that are underemployed. A lot of people having hard times these days. I mean, I go back to what the president said. Do you see that? That was water dropping down from the ceiling. Do you see that? It's so hot on here the building is sweating. But look, there are people around this country having hard times. Some of the folks I spoke with this morning described the fact that they're working, but working at jobs. We talked about, I won't tell you just who it was, but someone mentioned that their spouse had been working in our military for almost 40 years, worked in our military, worked his way up, doing very well, comes back to go to work in the workforce and is now only able to work in a job that requires heavy lifting, literally heavy lifting, making $8.50 an hour, a huge reduction in compensation for their family, both the mom and the dad in that circumstance. Look, people are having a hard time. Those unemployment numbers understate the difficulty happening in this country. I wish the president would get out, talk to people. He'd understand just how out of touch he was when he said the private sector is doing fine. It is not. It needs help, and I got to get it for it. And so what I'm talking about doing is getting help for the people who need it most right now in this country. But it's also getting help for the next generation. For our kids. They deserve to know that the future's bright. You deserve to know that your kids will enjoy a better future even than we've enjoyed. And that's got to happen again in America. And there's something else I'd mention. That's just the whole cause of liberty and freedom. Because America's strength is so essential to that. I was in Great Britain a number of months ago and got the chance to meet Tony Blair and David Cameron and other leaders of Great Britain. And one of them said to me, he said, Mitt, if you're lucky enough to be elected President of the United States, you will have the chance to visit other countries, go to their capitals, and you will undoubtedly have rehearsed for you all the mistakes they think America's making. And he said, but as you hear that, don't ever forget this, please. The one thing we all fear the most is a weak America. American strength, military strength, economic strength, strength in our homes. American strength is the best ally peace has ever known. The world counts on a strong America. I was actually in San Diego on Memorial Day, speaking about our military strength, and saw a number of the veterans of various wars, and also saw a number of the members of our armed forces today. It's, as you may know, a Navy base, Marine base there as well in San Diego, and I got the chance to introduce some of the veterans. One of the people I introduced was a man who was the lookout on the USS Tennessee on the day of the attack at Pearl Harbor. He said he was on that lookout post. He saw the pilot coming in, his eyes locked on the eyes of the pilot of one of those aircraft coming in and dropping armament on our ships that would take so many lives. He was injured in the attack, but went on to serve for 33 years in the U.S. Navy. And I had him stand, and he was recognized. But you know, there are not as many World War II veterans around as there used to be. And they can't stand quite as tall and straight as they used to. The torch that they've been holding for the world and for us, they can't hold quite as high. It's our turn to seize that torch. It's a torch of freedom, liberty, of opportunity, and hope. It's not America's torch, but it's America's duty and honor to hold that torch for the world. This is a critical time for America. Our ability to hold that torch high and to have it lit brightly so the world could see it and aspire for the freedoms we enjoy depends on strength here at home, in our homes, in our economy, and in turn in our military. We're going to get America stronger again with great jobs. I'm going to do that by balancing our budget, getting rid of Obamacare, making sure we open up new markets for American goods, getting our energy policies to work for us, not just for other folks who get hundreds of billions of dollars for us. I'm going to make sure there's a level playing field between labor and management. We're going to have good schools again. Our schools are falling behind. It's inexcusable. I want to train our workers for the jobs of today and tomorrow. We've got to get America working again. The world depends on us. The people of America struggling today depend on us, and our kids are hoping that we'll do it. We will do it. It's going to happen in Wisconsin. You're going to be the deciding voice. Help me win the presidency and keep America the shining city on a hill. Thank you so much. You're the best. Thank you.